No.
Today's Tuesday. It's your turn. What?
I thought I prayed yesterday.
Today's Tuesday.
Okay, so I accidentally prayed yesterday.
Oh, no, today's Wednesday. It is my turn.
Oh.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning praising you, worshiping you, exalting you. We know that you're a good, good Father. And we just love you so very much. We just give thanks to you. We seek your face and we seek your wisdom. We know that the desire of your heart was only for good for us. Dear Heavenly Father, as we open your word today, we just ask that you would teach us more of who you are. Give us wisdom and insight and guidance, direction and discernment. We just love you. And we pray these things in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Alrighty, dear. Do you want me to get you your glasses?
No.
Alrighty. Alright. Esther 2. Esther, chosen queen. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended to him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa the citadel, under custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given them, and let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti." This pleased the king, and he did so. Now there was a Jew in Susa the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives carried away from Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is, Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. Oh, so Mordecai was bringing Esther?
Yeah, Mordecai is his niece.
Esther is Mordecai's niece?
Yes.
Okay, the young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa the citadel in custody of Haggai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Haggai, who had charge of the women. And the young women pleased him and won his favor, and he quickly provided her with her cosmetics and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young women to the best place in the harem. Esther had not made known her people or kindred, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. And every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. He seems like a pretty awesome guy.
Mordecai?
Yeah. Now, when the turn came for each young woman to go into King Ahasuerus, after being 12 months under the regulation for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. Wow. When the young woman went into the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she would go in, and in the morning she would return to the second harem in custody of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not go into the king again unless the king delighted in her and she was summoned by name. When the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter to go into the king, she asked for nothing except what Hegai, the king's eunuch, who had the charge of the women, advised. Now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her, and when Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king gave a great feast for all his officials and servants. It was Esther's feast. He was granted a remission of taxes. He also granted a remission of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts with royal generosity. Now when the virgins were gathered together the second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Esther had not made known her kindred or her people, as Mordecai had commanded her, for Esther obeyed Mordecai, just as when she was brought up by him. In those days, as Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the threshold, became angry and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And this came to the knowledge of Mordecai, and he told it to the queen, and Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. When the affair was investigated and found to be so, the men were both hanged at the gallows. Wait a second.
What?
Who is hung?
Two of the eunuchs, two of the king's servants.
Because she was for Mordecai?
No. Okay. So, Mordecai found out, because he was hanging around, he overheard two of the eunuchs talking about an assassination attempt against the king.
How did I miss that? And I read it.
I don't know. That's literally what it says.
Okay. Wait, maybe I should reread it. Okay, anyways, go ahead and just explain it.
So, Mordecai told Esther, who then told the king.
Okay.
So that's the part where you're at. So then they investigated those two guys, found out they were planning an assassination attempt against the king, and then they were hung.
Oh, okay. And it was recorded in the book of the Chronicles in the presence of the king.
Yep. So.
Huh. Okay.
Drama.
It's a lot of drama. It's weird because it's like, on one hand, I feel very happy for Esther.
Okay.
Because she's like an orphan and she has this amazing Mordecai uncle to take care of her and trying to help prop her up into like a better, supposedly better life. And
well, I don't know if they had a choice but to take her. I think it was I mean, the decree.
It's like a Cinderella situation.
Yeah, but more like a forced Cinderella situation where it's like, all right, round them all up. We're gonna take a look at them, and it's like, oh, we're gonna keep you 7. The rest of you can go home.
Yeah, it's like on one hand, I feel very happy for her, and then on the other hand, I'm like, gosh, like he just threw away his wife for no reason, basically.
Yeah.
And then he just, I don't know. It's like he just using everyone for whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's what kings did a lot of back then. It was for their own personal pleasure. That's why in Proverbs it talks about when there's godly kings, the people rejoice.
Yeah.
And when there's evil kings, the people cry and moan because
they are forced to do whatever
Yeah.
they say.
Right. And it's like, if you don't do what I say, then I'm just going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the story gets really dark, like towards the end-ish, where it starts talking about how like the guy that tries to go against the king, and yeah, it gets to be pretty eek.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't really remember Esther for some reason.
We've read it a couple times, and Esther's kind of like Naomi.
Yeah.
In Ruth, right? So, without the story of Naomi and Ruth, there would be no King David.
Mm-hmm.
Because, was it Ruth? Man, now I'm getting which of the two confused. Anyways, one of them is the grandmother of David. So without that story where she wouldn't leave her mother-in-law after they got divorced and Boaz and all that stuff, right? There would have been no David. So Esther's kind of the same thing in that this is like after, unless my timeline's messed up, and I don't think it is, this is like after Israel's been conquered and hauled off to Babylon, or the Medes and Persians capture them and take control of them. Then this is like how Israel actually gets saved from oblivion, is through Esther. So I think that the interesting part about both of those stories is it's like one person's life who's seemingly small and insignificant can tip.
Well, she's so sweet seeming. Just like she seems all sweet and innocent.
But it's just funny how it can tip the entire course of, honestly, the world, which is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we feel small and insignificant, it's like, I mean, that's why when people say like, oh, you know, me plus God is a majority, or, have you never heard that?
You can, do I look blank?
Yeah. You're like, what?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So it's like, when God's working through an individual person, it's like extremely powerful things can happen, completely unbeknownst
to
everybody involved. It's kind of like that.
That's how I feel all the time.
It's like when you move like a little block in Tetris and the entire thing just goes like that's what kind of what happens.
That's an interesting way to think of it.
I wonder if managing all these people that are out in the world is like playing Tetris for God. Because like in Tetris, it's completely random what block you're gonna get, right, and how fast, like where it drops and all that stuff. So then you have to like move stuff over and line things up. I wonder if it's like that for God, where it's like this, like, because everybody's got free will.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I don't know what you're going to do today. I mean, I do know what you're going to do today, but I'm not going to, it's like I can see the future,
Yeah.
but it's like I'm also like God's also like manipulating things to line up in a certain way. And it's like,
Huh.
oh,
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, it is weird how just things you would never think of. Like, I mean, I can even think of I don't know. I can think of a lot of examples of just small actions that could change. I can think of how it could change everything.
right.
And the one I'm thinking of, like, let's see, like, if let's say just a grandfather who was really good and kind and good to his grandsons, and then one of them was off track and on drugs, and then the grandfather passed away, and then the grandson was like, oh man, I loved my grandpa, this isn't the life he wanted for me, I'm gonna get clean because of who my grandpa was.
Right.
Like, that's a real story, you know who that is, but it's like, wow, that's pretty powerful. And then how does that affect his marriage, his kids, all the future generations?
Right.
Whereas if his grandpa wouldn't have just been a normal good guy.
Right. Or vice versa. Like, when you have, I mean, if somebody falls prey to I don't know, like there's like alcoholism or even like being molested, like there's evidence to support that if you're molested, you tend to molest. So it's like, how does that affect generations?
The generational sin.
Generational curses and stuff.
Or
Yeah.
curse, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how important it is to break those, because it really does just have a ripple effect. And you do think things, it is just weird, like the things in your life. Actually, this is one that makes me feel really humbled and just in awe of God. Well, that one of those messages I sent out, I was thinking of this the other day. I get so caught up in the fact that it stirred up drama. But there was a person who told me they were literally suicidal, and that message
Change things for them.
yeah, I'm like, I can't even just thinking of it now, I can't even believe that.
Right.
But that's what they told me. So maybe that's what it's like, that's the thing to focus on, not the other stuff.
Right.
That's a really big deal.
Yeah, it is. I 100% agree with you.
With a little
With an email that you had
that took
pre-written, pre-planned, months in advance, how it landed at the right specific time.
That's very Tetrisy. And very, that could have potentially had a terrible ripple effect. So, it is good to remember. I mean, even just simple kindness, how it matters. Like, I remember there was a day, it's weird that I still remember this. That just goes to show how little things can make a big impact. But like, there was a day I was at the grocery store and I was just having a horrible day. And I don't remember why. I don't know if it was like grief after my dad passing, because it was in Colorado, or was it stuff with Antoinette, or just, I don't know, but I was just like having a miserable day, and I was at the grocery store and I went to put my basket away, and the lady waited for me. That her car was coming toward me, and she stopped and waited, and then she didn't just like drive past me, she still waited so that I could walk back again, and she like smiled at me. And I just remember like thinking, oh, like thank you for just being a nice person and taking an extra minute that just didn't even seem, I mean, I would have thought nothing if she just
Right.
buzzed past me once I crossed, but it just felt nice to have that little extra cushion because she wasn't in a hurry and she just was trying to be nice. I was like, And it seriously did change my day, and it's weird. I mean, I still remember just a simple little thing.
That's a good point. Interesting.
It's pretty encouraging when you think about it, how it doesn't take some giant feat or anything to do something nice.
Agreed.
Do you care if I read a song really quick? Do you
No,
have time?
It's getting pretty late, but I got time.
Okay. The reign of the Lord's anointed. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's wheel. Now therefore, O kings, be wise, be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way. For his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. I mean, it feels like it kind of goes with it still.
Yeah. Well, it's talking about rulers doing weird things. I get all that.
Well, and how making the nations your heritage and the ends of the earth your possession, and you shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel, just like the impact you can really have as one person, and about being wise if you're a ruler, and just
All right, you ready?